Off he went and confirmed that he'd pick Evie up from Cubs on his way home, like he always did on a Monday. And that was the last time I saw him. One of the things that stood out about Steve was the fact that he, to me, felt like the complete opposite to my dad. He was happy and stable, and we had a good sort of 8 years going on amazing adventures and doing all sorts of wonderful things before we had children. There was never any periods of time where there was any sort of mental illness. It was just not a thing on our radar at all.
Do you remember the day itself?
I do, vividly. It's not something I've ever been able to forget or ever will. Steve worked for a field marketing agency at the time, and off he went and confirmed that he'd pick Evie up from Cubs on his way home, like he always did on a Monday. And that was the last time I saw him. I reported him as a missing person later that day to the police. And then it was the Wednesday morning that I saw their car pull up outside, and they put their hats under their arms like you see them do on the TV, in that kind of mark of respect. And then they came into the living room and told me that they'd found him and he had died, and that it was clear that he'd done it to himself. The one thing that I knew was that I would need to tell Evie. She was at school and I needed to be the one to tell her before anybody else did. The person that you want to go through that with is the person that's gone. Steve was my life partner and we talked about everything, and I remember feeling so alone. My mental health was the worst it's ever been. I tried to hide it from the children as much as I could, but I was drinking, I was self-harming, I was angry all the time. And I'm a really practical person. I wanted things to be fixed. I found an amazing therapist. She said to me, "I will carry hope for you until you're ready to carry it for yourself." And I remember thinking, wow, what a thing to say. And she really did. And she helped me massively with my kind of mental health, and shifting from all of these sad emotions to much more hopeful kind of feelings of optimism. And the second part of that triangle of recovery was my children. Evie eventually became a mental health ambassador at school, and Ada was following in her footsteps, although she was obviously much younger. And I realised that they weren't these kind of weak individuals that needed permanent looking after. They were actually quite resilient, and they were growing into these young ladies that were quite tough. I could see myself being inspired by them. I could see myself accepting help from people in my community, and I felt like I had worth. I think that was a big part of the journey towards a more hopeful place. That's the key message, that there is hope and you can get to that point, and if you have to do it in tiptoes, that's okay. You will get there.